privacy and surveillance itself that we need to understand what it is in terms of definition, and then also in terms of the communication technology and eavesdropping, and last but not least, we are going to look into protecting user data or data protections. So for privacy, so actually with regard to privacy, there are many research. I also have involved one of the research with colleagues from MMU. So we kind of like investigate in terms of social media privacy among teenagers. So basically, when we talk about privacy, if you look at your social media or even your email and other things, there are some sort of terms that you can identify. That is what we call privacy. So we need to understand what privacy is. So back to the definition. So it refers to the ability of individuals, okay, as a person or groups, couple of person, to control or keep confidential information about themselves, about their personal or their groups, etc., and also their personal lives and their activities. So these are sort of informations that somehow we want to reveal, and at the same time we also want to protect and to keep it secret to a certain level, or to just certain people that can access to it. So it refers to the ability of people to control their confidential information. So this is a fundamental or paramount human right that allows individuals to maintain autonomy, dignity, and security. So you have autonomy, that you have control of what you want to share or what you want to disclose or hide. So you have that freedom. And also dignity, there are certain things that you want to keep to yourself or to a couple of people or family or something like that. And also in terms of security, protecting information, certain informations not to be revealed to simply anybody, is to protect your security as well, either your individual or as your to protect the security of your family, for example. So if we look at the surface web, dark web and deep web, so basically we can divide into like certain level of things, that what can be seen and what cannot be seen, or what's obvious or not obvious. So if you look at the surface of this iceberg, so it's common that you have Instagram account, Facebook, YouTube, Google, TikTok, Twitter, and so on. So you have all these accounts with your personal information and with your certain username, and your photo to determine who you are, where you're from, for example, what your interests. So there are sort of surface level or web, surface web level. And if you go further deeper, so we call this as a deep web. So the term called deep web. So this is where you have records pertaining to your medical, or maybe in terms of legal, private forums, research papers, and then also non-index content. And then even deeper, if you go to the dark web, we call it deeper dark because the light actually cannot penetrate through this water level of the seabed or something like that. So it's very dark. So it's not obvious what can be read or seen. And then if you go to the dark web level, so it includes private communication forums, term of reference or Tor, illegal trade, and illegal activities that behind the scenes, something like that. So if you reflect in terms of the structure of this internet content, if you go back to the www or World Wide Web at the surface level, so actually you can access to public websites, so you can search any sort of URL, and then you can access or can view all the information or the contents being shown on the website. And then through search engine, etc. So for example, you go to Wikipedia or you go to TAR University or any website. And then if you go deeper, where it's called under, as mentioned earlier, deep web, unindexed web. So there are certain sort of things that people or public cannot simply access or read or view. So for example, in this case, you have sort of protected website, for example, or maybe internet. So certain user with access can only view that sort of website or portal. Databases, to record or keep all the information about the students, clients, and so on, vendors, internet I mentioned before. So these are the things that you cannot, maybe you can search on Google, but you can't access it because there are certain sort of username password that you need to enter to show that you are the legitimate users or the one who have access or be given the access to these portals or internet. So you can't simply access it. You can't simply access to the medical doctors data, doctor information, everything that being recorded under certain institutions, so on. Academic information. So for academic information, sometimes it's something that to do with sometimes it's publics where you can view academics or lecturers, CVs, their profile, their qualification, everything. But there are, when we talk about internet or portal that perhaps store all the information in details about their academic qualification and so on that can be or needed by human resources, for example, those are the information that are not sort of visible to the public. Rather, only the authorized users in this context, maybe human resource staff or even the academic itself, can only access to the information, or their department or their faculty. And last but not least, the third level, what we call dark web or dark net. So this is what we call, as maybe some of you have learned, security, information security, or computer security. So this is what we call encrypted networks that offer full anonymity and require special software or program or coding and configuration and permission to access to it. Is even the hardest part to go into it. So host of the underground economy teeming with illegal activity. So these things that you can't read it, understand the code description unless you have some sort of to encrypt the access, the code in order to read what the information is. So this is about basically about the privacy definition and the structures of it. And then if we zoom into the types of privacy, so we can go to certain or different types. So the first type, what we call personal privacy, I think which reflects, makes sense to most of us here. So this refers to the protection of protection of an individual's personal information. So when we talk about our information or personal information, this includes our full name, our home address, perhaps office address, and then our contact details, phone number, mobile phone number, office number, fax numbers, our financial details, data, in terms of maybe bank account, so on. Health records, what are our health conditions, treatment that we have gone through, and the history and so on, and other sensitive data. So there are so many level or different grade of information, personal information that we can have that need to be protected and to keep our personal privacy. So, and no one simply can access about our health records, to know our history, historical health records, or and so on, with doctors, so on, even home address and so on. And then we go to the next type, what we call communication privacy. So for this type, it involves safeguarding the confidentiality of one's communication. So this is the one just now is about personal, our information, our address, our detail, our phone number, bank account, etc. But now we are moving towards how we communicate with others to various platforms and so on. So this is also things that we need to keep the privacy of that application. So we need to ensure that this sort of communication is kept secret, for example, confidential. So the element or platform that where we communicate, as you are aware of, your email, your phone calls, your email, even online messages, social media, WhatsApp, and so on. So those are the things that how we deliver our communication, and that should be some sort of be something that we need to safeguard to maintain the confidentiality of information, especially the things that pertaining to work for that negotiation and stuff like that. And then, so personal privacy, communication privacy, and the third one, we are talking about location. Personal communication, what we deliver or communicate, and the third one, where we are. So, nowadays there are many apps that you can trace where you are, track your and everything. So, for this privacy, this is related to an individual's right to keep their physical whereabouts and movements private. So you cannot just simply show where you are, where are you heading, and so on. So in 24/7. So it includes concerns about surveillance technologies, camera, CCTV, even your phone. You have app devices that can locate, track you where you are, and the collection of geolocation data. Okay, so through this, actually, we need to keep it the privacy of our location, so people cannot simply track where we are and so on all the time. And then moving on to the fourth one, so it's about data privacy, personal communications, location, and data privacy. So for this one, so it's about the protection of personal data collected by organization. Sometimes you are here, you have to fill up some sort of survey by other students, or maybe there are online survey that you have to fill up. And then maybe there are some sort of transaction. After the transaction, you have to fill out certain survey and so on to rate the customer satisfaction to the to a company and so on. So all this data actually being collected by all these various organization, agency and so on through website or through apps or even through government agency. So it is essential in this context is to ensure whatever data that we have shared here, in terms of course after we put our name, our email, our age, and so on, location and stuff like that. So this data, so actually we need to ensure that whatever data that's been collected and used, it should be used transparently with the individual consent, and that appropriate security measures are in place to prevent unauthorized access or misuse. So that organization, the one who collected your data, actually, they cannot simply reveal who you are, where you are from, your location is to anybody or to any other companies or third party. So that is something that that organization must call that keep it to their organization only for their purpose, for example, to improve to know their demographic of their customers, to improve their services and stuff like that. But they can't really share it to other third parties and so on. Like for example, when I conducted my PhD studies. So I had to do some sort of interview, something like that. So I have to get their consent that they understand what I interview them and how I was going to treat the data and so on. So and then I must promise that, for example, in the context of my study, so whatever data that I collected from that particular person actually just for me to do the research, and if I transcribe the whatever conversation that we had, is all the name, identifier, everything will be made hidden. So let's say there's a quotation or script that I would like to quote. So if I put in my thesis or report, so no one knows who that person is, because that number is maybe P1. And then when they say during their interview, they say certain name, about their name. So all those name, location, address will be made hidden. No one knows. Okay, so that is some things that a way of protecting their data privacy and to fulfill the data protection law acts and so on. Let's say if they are happy or they agree, then only you can conduct that or interview them, and you must whatever deliver your promise to make sure that data won't be. I cannot simply share the data to my spouse or my family or friends about, oh, that person blah 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 blah, or that person blah blah blah. No, that is totally against data protection acts. So that is something that we need to keep confidential. And then the next one is, the next type of privacy is what we call privacy in public spaces. As you go to shopping mall, or you go to do like this figure, do election, to go to the bank ATM machine, there are some sort of thing or space that we need to sort of to keep it the privacy among the people around it. So for this types, so it involves the expectations of privacy even when individuals are in public areas. So it includes limitation on surveillance activities, facial recognition technologies, and the ability to be free from intrusive monitoring. Okay. And then the next one is what we call privacy or personal relationships. So what is this? This is about something that related to the right that to keep intimate or personal relationships private, free from unwanted intrusion or surveillance. Maybe you have relationship with someone or something like that. So you need to keep it private. So there shouldn't be any sort of device or surveillance that monitoring or interrupt that such intimate relationship that you have. Okay. So now we look into what are the harms and benefits of privacy. Why is it important to have this sort of privacy, or to keep a certain information hidden and so on, or to ourselves or certain people only? So when we look at the benefits of privacy, so there are a couple of things that actually can be useful to have such privacy in our daily life and whatever system that we use or interact with. So first, individual autonomy. So you have a sort of control of what you want to share, to show, or what not to, and who you are going to share with. So if you for example, if you use any sort of social media, something like that, so you have this sort of autonomy to determine, even your WhatsApp, you have the autonomy or power to determine who can see or view a certain information and so on, who can see your post, who can see your update and stuff like that. So you have the control. It's not just something that you are forced to show anything, but rather there are certain things for that you can choose in order to determine who can access to it. And in this context, you have the autonomy or control over it. And then it's also good to preserve the security of your personal security people cannot simply know who you are, or something like trace you and then harm you or something like that. So you keep certain things to yourself. And then the third one, emotional well-being. So by having this sort of privacy, control everything, so it's something that also can help you to regulate your condition, your emotional state or condition, which change over time or certain things. So if imagine that you reveal anything to any people, and people can have freedom to free speech to talk or comment whatever that you have posted, everything. So that might affect your emotional. So having at the first place to control what to show, what to reveal, as some things that actually can tone it down and regulate your emotional, or not to to expose yourself to anybody and whatever activity that you're doing. And the fourth one, freedom of expression. Okay, so with this privacy, you can have more freedom in terms of expressing what you want to other people, or what you want to keep it just to yourself and so on, or to a certain group people. Stronger personal and professional relationship, encouragement of innovation and creativity, facilitation of social and political participation, and so on, and trust in institution and system that you are working with or use. Okay, from the other side of the privacy, the harms of privacy is that one what we call that invasion of personal space. If without such privacy, so people can what I mentioned just now, easily attack you, because since the information are all available and you know exactly or almost 100% about that particular person, so therefore it can be used by a certain unauthorized people or user actually to invade you or your life, and maybe unauthorized access to personal information. Because if you are admitting that you have all the information, so that might lead to a case where people can perhaps access to your bank account or access to your student portal system and so on. So these are things that you need to avoid. Okay. Identity theft and fraud. Someone maybe pretend to be you, it actually is not, and do something bad and using your name or something like that because they have all your details. Stalking and harassment. Okay, so people can stalk you or harass you or intimidate you with all those information that you have shared or something that they know about you exactly. Discrimination and bias based on personal data. So imagine that you have all the data, people know about you, so they can discriminate you. You are from a certain country, or you are from certain background, or you are from certain region or academic life and so on. So people tend to make a bias and have if you with a certain service or something like that might not be suitable. Loss of control over personal information. So you have revealed a lot of things. So you just there are so many people can access. Imagine that social media. So people can easily use your information, your photo, your detail, everything to create another profile, something like that to represent you. So it's quite hard to control all these things. Surveillance and monitoring, data breaches and leaks, targeted advertising and manipulation. So people can use on behalf of your name, saying that I'm going to, maybe you have a certain profile qualification, so people can believe you or rely on you most. So maybe there are some sort of people that might use your information. They say that we offer this business, this investment on your name, so people may believe it. Then they may be trapped into some sort of manipulation or wrong information or something like that, and then they use or sell that product using your name without your consent and you're aware of. Reputation damage and online shaming as well. So these are things that you need to be aware of, all the harms that can cause of without any sort of privacy setup. So moving on to the next section, where we're talking about monitoring or what we call introduction to surveillance. So for this surveillance, so basically it refers to the systematic monitoring. So is systematic here means that we know at this time and at this time where you are, who you are with, and with all this camera or CCTV installed, we can track that systematically and even can predict where you are next and so on. So okay, so it refers to the systematic monitoring, observations, watch you where you are, who you are with, what car you drive, and something like that, or collection of information about individuals, group, or activities. Either about yourself or your families, your groups, your department members, or activities that you're doing. So for this context, it involves the use of various techniques, approaches, technologies, tools, methods to gather data. It's not just one single way that you just use a particular CCTV installed at your office, but maybe through other technologies, using apps, your phone, social media interactions, maybe where you have checked in, for example before, and then the camera also can sort of track your behavior, your emotion, your feeling, your condition, your state, or monitor specific targets. So surveillance can be conducted actually by governments, organizations or individuals. For example, you're talking about when you go to your office or you go to university, there are cameras, CCTV and stuff like that, or face recognition to take your attendance. So they can do this sort of surveillance through all these devices and machines. Or individuals for different purposes, such as for security, law enforcement, intelligence gathering, and commercial interests. So for example, maybe we are talking about your office, your university. So the surveillance is actually to track, to detect any sort of, to control every, the office, your university is in control, all the people's all behave or something like that. If there's some sort of activities or situation we are out of order, something like that, so this also sort of surveillance camera actually can detect it and alarm the officer or something like that to take immediate actions to look at it or, and address it accordingly. So there are many reasons why we have this sort of surveillance around us. The common one is for security and so on. So if you look at physical types of surveillance, so first one is what we call physical surveillance. So this involves direct observation, like you can see on the screen. So there's a camera, CCTV. So it's a direct observation of individuals or activities by human agents. So with all those cameras, so there are somebody actually, or certain people in certain control room center or something like that actually can observe in real time at this spot, how the condition, how the people, how the traffic. So there are somebody who look after this, or maybe there are things that involve a couple of persons at the same time in the center room to locate all these different places at the same time. Okay, observation of individuals or activity by human agents, typically through visual or auditory means. So you look at your screen, and maybe there's also some sort of sounds that you can hear the conditions. So it can include monitoring public spaces. So you have, as mentioned before, CCTV in a closed circuit television cameras, or employing undercover agents. Maybe there are some sort of agents. Maybe you can't see there's a CCTV, or maybe there's CCTV, and there's also undercover agents you don't know that actually observing people walking there and so on. So this can also be used as physical surveillance. Okay, sometimes you can you know, in the for that on the road highway, there's CCTV. There's also police that actually hidden somewhere, actually observing your car speed or your whether you have road tag or not. So they are the physical person agents that observe your movement and your state. And then that's just about physical. So we also nowadays talking about everything digital, AI and stuff like that. So we also have what we call digital surveillance, which is more efficient, effective. So in this context, this surveillance involves the monitoring of online activities and communication. So more on the interaction with the system that you know, with the system actually you communicate. With the social media actually you communicate, and then you do some sort of activities. Even you're talking about online banking system, so there are some sort of digital monitoring surveillance that can be done there to detect any sort of anomaly and so on that happening, or transaction, phishing transaction and so on. So it includes tracking internet usage, the pattern, collecting metadata, intercepting emails or instant messages. You know, you when you communicate to somebody, somebody can intercept it, the email or the messages. Monitoring social media posts. So as you know that, you know, nowadays in Middle East and so on. So there are certain sort of social media actually can actually trace what sort of thing that you post, and then they can remove or something, all those things based on whatever screening that they have done through this surveillance, or using surveillance software or technologies, you know, to monitor all this communication transaction. So we have physical surveillance, we have digital surveillance, and another one we have mass surveillance. So this refers to the widespread indiscriminate monitoring of a large population or broad range of activities. So it often involves the collection of vast amounts of data, which can be analyzed, stored, and assessed for various purposes. So this is the figure here that is actually London Cube. So you've gone to London, so you have experienced this. So there are during peak hour, for example, or maybe delay, something like that. So people got crammed there at the station to get into it. So this is some sort of things that highly dense population, something like that. With this sort of surveillance, actually it can detect any of those individuals within the crowd and who they are, for example, and detects zoom into their condition, their facial, their state. So and all this information actually can be you know, processed, kept, and stored, and determine what's happening there. Actually, determine what's happening there. Then you have electronic surveillance. So for this one, so this includes the interceptions of or monitoring of electronic communications, such as phone call, text messages, email, or other forms of electronic data transmission. So when you make a phone call, you typing message. So this sort of electronic surveillance actually can intercept and read or monitor what sort of what the conversation is, and then can call that, determine what sort of things has been communicated and so on. So for this one, for this type of surveillance, it may involve the use of wiretapping, data interception, or surveillance tool. And then the next one is what we call biometric surveillance. So biometric surveillance actually depends on the use of biometric data, So because each one of us has our own unique data, in terms of our fingerprints, all the unique, and then facial recognition, iris scans, DNA. So we can know exactly who this person is, and then can track. So it is often used in security systems, border control, and law enforcement. So for example, you want to go to travel abroad. So many of these what we call airport actually have used this sort of biometric surveillance to make it easy to check a person and read their details and whether any historical record in some cases into that individual. So either usually they use thumbprint, iris, and so on. And even when you talk about organization, something like that, there are certain rules, things that only authorized can access, and very high risk and something like that. So in order to access to the room or data information, so you have to use this sort of biometric surveillance to protect all those, rather being exposed to any of unauthorized users or person. Okay, so if you look at the whatever that we have communication tool or technologies that we have here, actually they have provided the opportunities and also at the same time challenges or difficulties when it comes to eavesdropping. They have also created potential vulnerabilities that can be exploited for eavesdropping. So people can intercept you, smell whatever that happening is going on easily through this communication platform or technologies. So if we look at into this eavesdropping attacks, so you can see, okay, this in the middle there's a hacker. So of course you have the users, computer users, so on, and there's also servers that where you communicate or get the information from, and so on. So via this World Wide Web. So within that, this vast www. So and this sort of eavesdropping attack can happen. The possibility that can happen within that space. So this hacker actually instead of you can have direct communication with the server and extract information from it and input information to the server. Actually, in the middle, actually there exists hacker actually to penetrate or to intermediate. Instead of communicate direct to the server, actually you as the user, actually you have somebody unauthorized, actually you have communicated or shared information to this hacker. And with this information, actually you can actually gain access. Hacker actually can gain access to the server with the information that you have. So this also not just get the information, but also if not to steal the information, but through just hear what's been going on, being communicated actually. So you have this sort of eavesdropping attacks can happen while you are communicating with the servers and so on. So there are two types of eavesdropper, governmental or non-governmental. So the one is legal, so it's what we call governmental eavesdroppings, to do investigation and stuff like that, to solve case and so on. So governmental eavesdroppings is what we call regulated and legal. It's legal to have to do this. But for the next one, non-governmental. So for this context, it's restricted or completely banned in most countries. Okay. Exception. For example, in this context, employers monitoring the employees' use of internet communication methods. employer monitoring the employees' use of internet communication method. What method that they use in order to communicate to other person or among the staff in that company, or to communicate with other person from outside. So, for instance, in the United Kingdom or UK, employers can monitor their employees' email. So your boss actually can monitor your emails, provided they tell their employees quite clearly that such monitoring is happening. They may not, however, monitor telephone use. So it's a certain condition of state in the United Kingdom. Actually, the boss or the employees actually can go through their emails, their employees' emails. So how to do this eavesdropping ways? So first one is what we call wiretapping. So for this one, actually is something that involves intercept and monitor telephone or internet communication. So whether you communicate through phone or you communicate through the internet, through social media, and so on. So basically, that wiretapping actually can hear or listen whatever things that you talk to somebody, staff or somebody, exactly what you say to that person, or you communicate between that two person. So as the eavesdropper, we can hear exactly what you're talking about. And if you're talking about social media and so on, internet communication, so you can see your chat, everything, what you have written and so on. In the past, so physical access to telephone wires was required, but with the digitalization of communication, it now involves the interception of digital signals or data packets transmitted over networks. So when you're talking about networks, so all the data are being stored and transferred by packets. So actually we can receive or intercept all this packet, and we can see what's in the packet. Okay, next one, network monitoring. Okay, so when we go back to the provider, internet provider, ISP, government agencies or even malicious actors, actually they can monitor network traffic to intercept and analyze communication data. So for this, this can include email content, also instant messages, WhatsApp for example, or message on phone, voice calls or browsing activity, what sort of things that you browse or you look at. So these are the things that we can monitor. So what are the best network monitoring tools for 2023? So okay, so here we have a list of 5 useful cloud solutions for network management. So for example, you have paid network monitoring, event century, and so on. So in public or unsecure Wi-Fi networks, so these eavesdroppers can intercept and capture data packets transmitted between devices on the network. So in the network, there are many devices, printers, computers, PC, laptop, and so on, router, and so on. So this eavesdropper actually can intercept all those packets, transferred, delivered, or via all these various devices, machines. So in this context, this can expose sensitive information because you are talking about logging into the system or portal. Maybe you are communicating something, information secret that you want to tell to the person, or maybe you are doing transaction online or something like that, online banking. So via all this packet. So this eavesdropper actually can intercept and capture all those packets and know exactly what it is. Basically, there are 7 most common Wi-Fi threats. Talking about Wi-Fi connection and so on. So as you can see, First, in terms of configuration problems, denial of service. Okay, so for example, sending large amounts of traffic or viruses over the network with the intent of hijacking resources or introducing backdoor. Sometimes there are so many attacks. You send to that network, so maybe it just jam the what we call that, the traffic there, or you send viruses and so on, so it just jam the organization and so on, or network. Passive capturing, raw, evil twin attack, hacking, freeloading, and so on. Okay, so through malware and spyware, so this also can happen in the context of eavesdropping. So malicious software or spyware can be used actually to secretly monitor communication on infected devices. So once you have infected that devices or machine laptop, actually through this software, malicious software or spyware, so you can take control and know the communication happening. So how you for in this context, so this includes keylogging, screen captures, or assessing microphone and camera functionality without the user knowledge. You have a control, so you can even you are not logging into it, this dropper actually can log into your system and spy on your activity or your folders, your files, everything, and then maybe use your microphone, your camera that attached to that devices or machine or laptop. Okay, so there are different types of malware programs. Okay, so maybe you have learned in the intersecurity or social security. So you have, for example, in this context, you have viruses. Okay, so these bugs normally are attached to an email. So when you open the email, so basically there are some sort of a virus there that you are not aware of. So that bugs actually can attack your system or your computer, your laptop and so on, through this email attachment or something like that, or link. And it's not just attachment, but the link sent to your email. When you open it, actually it will spread the virus and attack your system or machine or system. Ransomware. So this is something that encrypts your files and then demands a ransom to return data to the user. Okay, so maybe there are certain files that are very urgent related to your work or something like that, where you keep certain documents, details. So if you can't open it or access to it because it's been encrypted, so this the one who authorized eavesdropper will some sort of demand ransom from you if you want to access to the file, open it. Then you need to give certain things, give money or something like that. Then only you will get back the file, or you can open your file and so on. Scareware. So for this one, the user would be taken to a page to purchase a fake program. Scareware. So it directs you to a certain interface or link that you can have a promotion, or you can buy something with a low price, something like that. But actually it doesn't exist at all, but it just want to take your credentials, something like that. Okay. And the spyware. So for the spyware, it can monitor all forms of communication and interaction on device. It's just to spy, smell what you are doing, what you open, what you communicate with, who you communicate with, and so on. It just spy your activities in order to then do something. And with that, such thing, they know exactly what you do and so on. Trojans. So for this one, this application is actually stealing personal data. Personal data I mentioned just now, your details, your account number, your ID, user ID, or your home, your phone numbers, or email, something like that. Spying or even crashing your computer. Even crash your computer, jam your computer, something like that. And last but not least, we have adware. So this one will pepper the user with the unwanted ads. I mean that you will be pop up with all this advertisement to attempt to get them to part with their money. You know, you click that ad and then another ad comes up and direct you to certain link and so on, or do certain transactions. So that's another things that might lead to this case. And then next one, Bluetooth eavesdropping. So for this one, as you can see in the figure, so Bluetooth enabled devices can be vulnerable. You know, sometimes you're on your Bluetooth for a certain reason to transport documents, something like that. So it can be vulnerable to eavesdropping attacks if they have weak security setting or not properly protected. So in this context, the eavesdroppers can intercept and capture Bluetooth signals from one to another device in order to listen in on conversations, what has been communicated, or access the data what has been transferred, between that device. So as you can see, examples of attacks of this Bluetooth, eavesdropping, hijacking, sniffing, sniff what you're talking about, stealing personal information, based on the file that you have transfers, documents, buffer overflow attack, and so on. Okay. Next one, under eavesdropping, also social engineering. I'm sure you have heard about this. So, it's about what we call that. The eavesdropper, they employ this sort of techniques, social engineering technique, to do some sort of manipulation, to manipulate you, to allure you, or something like individuals, into revealing sensitive information or granting unauthorized access to their communication devices or account. So this can involve impersonation, phishing, and pretexting. Okay. So, so for example, phishing. For example, you open what call that? Maybe there's a interface like maybe to you, for example. Then which looks like real, maybe to you. And then maybe there are some sort of interface where you need to log in, username and password, everything. So this sort of thing actually when you key in your username and password, for example, actually this phishing actually can sniff and steal your information actually. Or maybe it's not just maybe to you, maybe there are interface that maybe it will ask you to join this or to get the prizes, everything. So you have to log in your account number, something like that, to gain the reward, something like that. So once you put all those information, details, username, password, actually, it can steal that information. And then, how? Because you came in or enter the information that actually will, that information, this one who do the phishing actually can steal the information, get the information, and use that credential actually to log in into your account, real account, so on. And then voice over IP, VoIP. So in this context, the VoIP technology, which allows voice communication over the internet, can be subject to eavesdroppings if not properly secure, or if there's a very poor security mechanism in place. So for this one, the eavesdroppers can actually intercept and listen in on voice VoIP calls, and then potentially accessing private conversation or sensitive information. the same like before, just like with that technology actually. The improper can actually listen to your conversation, whatever voice being delivered or transferred, and then with this actually they can steal those, or can gain the access or understand what conversation is. Okay, so last one is about data protection. So this I mentioned just now is something that to have protect your data rather to be simply stolen or revealed to third party and so on. So data protections refer to the set of practices, policies and measures implemented to safeguard personal and sensitive information from unauthorized access, use, disclosure, alteration, or disruption. So in this context, it involves ensuring that data is collected, processed, stored, and shared in a manner that respects the privacy and right of individual. So just now I mentioned to you, so when I conducted the interview, or maybe if you were to conduct your survey, so you is obliged to to fulfill data protection. So you aware what data protection, you know what data protection. If you breach this data protection rules, regulations, so on, so you can be sued or the action can be taken to you because of your negligence, or maybe you misuse of data and reveal the data to other third party, or you spread to other person who authorized. So in coming back to the interview, so you have to do some sort of checking with data protection law, where you must ensure that whatever data that you have collected to your survey, to your interview, and so on, is only for you, not only for you to simply use it, but for example, just now, for study purposes, for research purposes, that you want to do a project to know maybe the condition, the relationship with certain parameters and so on, and therefore you can solve the problem or understand what caused that problem to happen. So once you have conducted the interview, your survey, everything, so you must tell that the participants that their data actually, how you store, how you treat the data, what you can do or cannot do with the data. So for these things that you must ensure that the data, as I mentioned just now, is just for me to do my research, and I will keep it just for me, confidential. And when I transcribe the conversation, everything, all the names will be hidden, or no one knows who that person is, and also who the person that participant was talking about, their home address, their information, their qualification background thing. Those things actually only for the researcher, and they cannot simply distribute to anybody and let anybody knows about that particular participant. So that participant actually needs to know exactly how you treat your data, their data, how you process it, what you can do the most, and so on. So this is to ensure that participants are happy, and you understand your rules and what you can and cannot do, so they feel feel safe. So data protection measures include, what are the measures under this? One is implementing security protocols, encryptions, access control, and regular backups to prevent data breaches and authorized disclosure or loss. So to make sure that this data is protected and so on, so there should be some sort of security measure protocol that you need to fulfill. You need to encryption, maybe through this encryption, no one can read what's the information being shared or talk about, and who can access it. So you need to set stringent access control that only authorized can access it. So if with these such measures, actually methods or approaches that you want to ensure that those data cannot be stolen, and nobody can easily so simply access to it, or you lose the data as well. So this is just to show call technology and markets. So in terms of email protection, application recovery management, and so on.
因为我放那个 Squad 进去嘛，我们就照这个 Ruby 看嘛，那我自信的讲，我们这边一定拿不到分，我们这边一开始起码一定。
In the digital economy, data is of strategic importance. With social, economic, and governmental activities increasingly carried out online, the flow of personal data is expanding fast, raising issues related to storage and use. Current technologies, cloud services, the Internet of Things, and big data, as well as future technological innovations and increased connectivity through 5G networks, can deliver enormous benefits. But they also make it more urgent to address various concerns over data and privacy. The challenge for data protection regimes is in managing the risks and addressing the concerns without restricting or eliminating the potential benefits. The role of governments and the industry in protecting online data is of paramount importance. It must be done with a great deal of trust and confidence. This requires collaboration across stakeholders and geographies. Cross-border e-commerce presents developing countries with amazing opportunities, but those countries that want to participate in the digital economy must consider the need for legal and regulatory frameworks to protect the personal data they collect. According to the UNCTAD Global Cyber Law Tracker, around 60 developing countries do not have current baseline protection laws in place, and another 35 only have draft legislation. The United Nations Conference on Trade and Development is happy to offer a platform for discussion on a vitally important subject. As industry players and consumers, as well as governments and international organizations, you will have the opportunity to present your perspectives, outline recent developments, current practices, and consider relevant frameworks. We will discuss how various challenges, including compliance, localization, and interoperability, as well as opportunities related to data protection and privacy, affect the potential for cross-border trade, especially in the context of developing countries. So let's start the dialogue. Where do we go from here? What are realistic solutions? What can we do to address concerns of various stakeholders while at the same time avoiding stifling trade and innovation? How can we make sure developing countries take full part in this global discussion and accelerate their adoption and enforcement of legal frameworks? Welcome to UNCTAD and to the expert meeting on data protection and privacy, implications for trade and development.
Okay, so it's quite important also to know what GDPR. So this is something related to data protection. So the full name is the General Data Protection Regulation, GDPR. So this is what we call that a more comprehensive data protection law enacted in the EU, European Union. The purpose is to safeguard the privacy that we talk about and rights of individuals, persons regarding the processing of their personal data. How we the rules, regulation that those who share or obtain the data, how can they make use of the data and what they can or cannot do. So this is to establish fundamentals, rules and principles that the one who collect the data or the organizations to the one who collect the data, they must adhere to when handling personal data regardless of their location. So they must store, manage the data according to what set of rules and principles set in this GDPR. So for this GDPR, actually it grants individuals greater control over their data, empowering them with rights such as access, rectification, erasure, and the ability to object to processing. They can disagree or disagree. Non-compliance with the GDPR can result in substantial fines and penalties. You know, if you don't fulfill or you breach this, what call that rules set by this GDPR. So actually, there are sort of penalties, fines that can be the company or organization who breaches need to bear. So. So when we look at this, not just within EU, but actually the impact actually it extends beyond it. So many organizations worldwide, through this applicability of these rules, data protection rules, they have some sort of incorporated or adopted the principles as a benchmark, you know, for ensuring robust data protection practice at their countries or organization. You know, all the practice rules actually have addressed all the important concerns, and therefore, let's say for example, in other countries they feel that very comprehensive, and therefore they can practice it in their country or their organization and so on. Within, even though it's not under EU. So in this context, there are a couple of requirements under GDPR. So for instance, you can see in terms of limitations of limitation of purpose, data and storage. I think just now I mentioned about consent that you need to get from the participant or the one who collected data from. Data transfers, data protection officers that manage the data, that awareness and training, personal data breach, and so on. So in the Malaysian law context, so you have this what called Personal Data Protection Act 2010. So there are 7 principles of personal data protection under PDPA. So first one, you have a general principle. So person whose data is to be processed must consent. Okay, so you must get the consent. Notice and choice principle. Person must be notified his personal data will be processed and how. He must also be given the choice to limit the right to process. So let's say you are the researcher or the one who want to collect the data. So you must tell the person or the participant, the one who recruit, about how the data will be processed that I mentioned just now. Third one, disclosure principle. Personal data cannot be used except for purpose stated and cannot be disclosed except to disclose third parties. So before you collect data or before you conduct an interview, so you must explicitly mention, as mentioned before, the reason and the purpose of your interview, or why you collect the data, or why you see me, and what I'm going to do with the data, and I can give consent what you can share or what you cannot share to the person who collect the data. The fourth one, security principle. Companies must have sufficient steps and procedures to protect personal data from loss, misuse, modification, unauthorized access, or disclosure, alteration, or destruction. And then the fifth one, retention principle. Personal data cannot be kept longer than necessary and must be destroyed or permanently deleted if no longer required. Maybe after 3 months or after 3 years. You know, so all this information must be destroyed, deleted, and so on. The research or so done or something like that. You cannot keep that file, the interview file for 7 years, and imagine that somebody access to it, and then they can read it, and they know what's happening, and they can detect the person and so on. Six, data integrity principle. Companies must take reasonable steps to ensure personal data is accurate, complete, not misleading, and kept updated. And finally, access principle. Any person must be permitted access to his own personal data and be entitled to correct any accurate, incomplete, or misleading information of himself. So, coming back to the example that given you just now. So, when I conducted the interview, so I did it for the participant. So, I transcribed all the conversation for 1 hour interview. So, 1 hour interview, for your information, in my cases, it's about 20 pages long of transcript, for 1 hour or more or less 1 hour. So I have to give whatever that I have transcribed back to the participant. So they look at all the transcription that I've done based on that interview with him or her. And let's say if he or she disagrees on certain things or ask to change, then I have to change. Okay. Let's say he or she wants to hide certain things, so I have to hide. So upon request, that person should be able to can see what I have transcribed, and then can sometimes when you listen to the interview, maybe you misunderstood or you got it wrong what he or she said. So the person that interview can correct it and change it, because that is not what I meant. But you transcribe like this, so I want you to change. So you have to change. Okay. So those are the principles of PDPA that you can be aware of. I think in the future when you conduct, you do even your degree, master, PhD, and so on. So when you collect data, so you must follow all this rule. So this is some sort of comparison between GDPR and PDPA. So basically more or less the same, but sometimes the terms are slightly different. But actually it covers all the aspects. Okay. Say for example, accountability, access principle. Those are the things actually quite related. This is another sort of comparison to compare data protection law from one country to another country, like within Asia, for example. So you have Korea, you have Taiwan. So more or less cover the same key principle, underlying principle of data protection principles, and so on. Apart from the PDPA, in the Malaysia context, there are also sort of provisions that also to support this privacy. So you have, for example, in this context, you have Communication and Multimedia Act 1998 as CMA. So this CMA actually regulates the communications and multimedia industry in Malaysia. So it includes provisions related to the protection of personal data, confidentialities of communication, and also the obligations, possibilities of licenses to protect customer information, computer crime, Penal Code, Financial Services Act 2013 and Islamic Financial Services 2018. So both acts actually regulate the financial services industry in Malaysia. And in this context, this act actually has these what called provisions in terms of maintaining the confidentiality and protection of their customers' financial information. So you cannot reveal your customer, their account numbers, their home address, everything to third party, as well as obligation of financial institutions to have data protection policies and procedures in place. So they have million of user customers. So of course they have many data. They know the details and so on. So they have to keep all those, obliged to this, to keep all the detail only for them and just for their operation and so on, rather than distribute or share those information to their clients, to other companies, to other countries and so on, or governments and so on. Okay, so yes, that's all for today's with regards to privacy and surveillance. So next week we're going to continue with other topics. And till then, so thank you so much for listening.